You know, I used to think that fat loss was about training for 2 hours every single day and having the perfect diet. But no matter what I tried, I stayed fat for years purely because I didn't believe that I could do it. I would tell myself that I had bad genetics, that I was lazy, and that I just couldn't do it. Until one day I stopped chasing quick fixes and I set about changing my mindset and my own beliefs around fat loss, and that allowed me to lose 70 pounds of body fat. And in this video, I'm going to reveal to you the truth about what you actually need to do in order to lose fat and change your own life for good. When most people think about fat loss, they think about their diet and their training, and whilst that is important, no matter how good your training is or how perfect your diet is, if your own self-belief isn't there, you will never lose fat. I spent literal years thinking I just couldn't do it, and because I convinced myself I was the type of person who could just never do it, I would say things like, I have bad genetics, I'm not the kind of person who can stick to a diet, and I just have too much other stuff going on right now. And what I didn't realize then is those weren't just random passing comments. They were shaping my everyday actions and my own identity. Every time I would say to myself, I just can't do it, that would make it true. And because that was then my reality, that would lock in as a belief even more. So it wasn't a lack of knowledge that was keeping me fat. It was a limiting belief that I was reinforcing over and over again. Most people fail to lose fat not because the process doesn't work, but because they don't actually believe they can stick to it for long enough to succeed. So they give up way too early. They quit before their body has a chance to change, and they self-sabotage the second things get a little bit hard. And that's why fat loss is much more of a mental game than it is a physical game. It's about building a belief system that you are the kind of person that can do it. The facts are, fat loss is simple, but it isn't easy. You eat less than you burn, keep your protein high, and stay active, and once you do that consistently, you will lose fat. There is no magic secret or perfect diet. Of course, there are systems that you can put in place and tactics you can use to make it easier and more sustainable, but the simple fact is, if you are in a calorie deficit, you will lose fat. Well, if the mechanics are so easy, why is it that half the population is obese? Well, it's again because the mental side is so much harder. The difference between these two versions of myself was my mindset and my self-belief. Can you stay consistent when motivation fades? Can you avoid spiraling the second you mess up? Can you delay gratification long enough to see results? Well, most people simply cannot because they were never taught good habits around nutrition and fitness. It's not something you're born with, it's something you develop just like a muscle. The truth is, if you've tried to lose fat and it hasn't worked, you need to change to lose fat. You have to grow into someone who pushes through and doesn't throw in the towel at the first sign of discomfort. You will never build that through guilt or shame, you build it through structure. You develop small habits over time and you go after small wins over and over again, and eventually that becomes who you are. Fat loss will then come as a byproduct of your discipline, consistency, and beliefs. For some strange reason, although it's never really spoken about, it's the most important part of fat loss. I suppose because it's way more clickable seeing a before and after photo, but your identity, your beliefs, and your mindset are the most important thing. And that all starts with how you speak to yourself. If you're constantly telling yourself and other people that you are lazy and you can't stick to things, what do you think happens? Well, your subconscious will look for ways to prove yourself right. You miss a workout, for example, and go over your deficit by a little, and instead of getting back on the horse, you say, see, I knew I'd mess up, and then you spiral. But if you flip that and start saying to yourself that you are someone who follows through and someone who can do it, then what happens? You do it. At first it may seem like a lie or like it's fake, but that's how it starts. You choose the new identity first, then you will act in alignment with that instead of waiting around for a burst of motivation to hit you. And if you're wondering how you build a new identity, you do it through small daily wins. You cook dinner even though you're tired. You hit your protein target even though it's inconvenient, and you go for that walk even though it's raining. Once you start doing that, you slowly become the person who can lose fat and, more importantly, keep it off for life. A really simple exercise that used to help me at the end of every single day was I'd sit there and I'd ask myself, did I act like the person, the version of myself that isn't fat today? If the answer was yes, I'd be proud of myself and I'd go to bed. And if it wasn't, I'd sit there and ask myself, what can I do tomorrow to make sure that happens? And when you do that for long enough, your entire belief system around yourself and fat loss completely changes. And again, that's when the fat starts coming off. And once you start showing up consistently and becoming a person who does follow through, you will realize that you never can rely on motivation to keep showing up. You need structure. I used to wait around for motivation like some divine energy boost, and I would wake up and I would have days where I felt, you know what, today I just don't really feel like it. Then that day would turn into a week. That week would then turn into a month. And before I knew it, I was right back where I started. Listen, motivation comes and it goes. It's basically like a British summer. It's unreliable, But the thing with structure is it's always there to keep you on the right path. It always keeps you going even when you're not in the mood and even when you don't feel like it. Things finally changed for me when I stopped waiting for myself to wake up and magically feel inspired one day. I realized that I needed a system that made it hard to mess up and easy to stay on track. Because none of us are ever going to feel motivated all the time. We get tired, we get busy, and we all have days where we feel off, and it's on those days where the difference is made. Believe me, the person that loses fat and keeps it off for the rest of their life is the person that shows up 95% of the time even when they don't feel like it, and the person that shows up 50% of the time and completely smashes it stays fat. The only way for you to do this is to build a system that takes decision making out of the equation. You don't want to wake up and choose whether you will eat well, train, or walk. You want it to become automatic. So once you have that belief system in place, the next step is obvious. Build a structure around your new identity. So how do you do that? Well, let me show you with the practical steps that allow me to lose 70 pounds of fat and keep it off forever. Yes, they are simple, but simple works because simple is sustainable and sustainability brings results. The first and most important step is a 500 calorie deficit. One of the reasons I just couldn't do diets was because I kept trying to do extreme ones, so it's no wonder that became part of my identity. Once I stuck to a 500 calorie deficit for the first time in my life, it didn't actually feel like I was dieting, but I was losing a steady 1 pound of fat per week. Next was making sure I got high protein in every single day, and to be honest, that's never something I really struggled with, but I hear so many people say 180 grams, that's literally impossible, but it's really not when you break it up throughout the day. 4 to 5 meals where protein is your main source of that meal and you're there. Thirdly, it was my biggest limiting belief, and that was that I just can't track calories. Well, that was BS, because once I started weighing my food and putting it in MyFitnessPal, I realized how easy it actually was. Now I've done that for so long, I literally have X-ray calorie reading vision. Next up is something I still do every single day and I will do for the rest of my life, and it's 10,000 steps a day. Trust me, like you, I used to say I don't like walking. Then guess what? I made it a non-negotiable. I forced myself to walk for a couple months and now it's literally the favorite part of my day. So go and try it and I promise you eventually you will love it. Next was weight training. If you are anything like me, you want a lean, muscular and athletic look. And if you do, then you need to get yourself in the gym. Just 3 times per week is more than enough for most people, so become a person who frequents the gym. And finally, do what I did and become a goddamn scientist. Keep a journal and find out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what helps you stay on track, where you slip up, and you will become better at losing and keeping fat off. Once you become accountable and you continue to make small incremental improvements, you will only go in one direction in life. Trust me when I say this, you can lose fat and you will lose fat and change your life forever, especially if you watch my videos. So on that note, if you want to work with me on a one-on-one basis where we all work together, and I will ensure that you are accountable and give you the best possible advice and programming to get you in the best shape of your life, click the link in the description and book a call. Other than that, if this video helped, leave it a like, share it with a friend, preferably a fat one, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.